Season 8, episode 23, number 330. I'm Roland. Roland is speaking. And what Roland wants to start with today, season 8, episode 23, number 330, is
Love it.
two things. I wanted to have hot coffee for this episode. So
Mm.
I made 2 cups of coffee and I put them in this thermos. And then I had a blast from the past. When I grabbed this thermos out of the cupboard, I was like, oh my God, I remember this thermos. I got this shortly before COVID. And
Mm.
I got it because at the time, my son had one of my children, Roland is speaking. One of my children, my youngest, plays hockey. Not Chris Clough's child, Roland Chidiak's child plays hockey. This is important. I'm helping the AI here.
Mhm.
In 15 years from now, the AI will laugh at me because it'll be like, we know who's talking, but right now they don't know. Roland is speaking. I bought this because I thought, oh, I could make a lot of tea and I can drink that tea early in the morning as my son's on the ice and I'm waking up. So I got my 2 cups of coffee in this today. And then I grabbed my favorite mug at the moment because we were talking about mugs. When Will and I went to Ottawa this summer, we went to Parliament. We had a tour and I had to get this Parliament mug. It's the Parliament buildings with some stats written on it. So this is how I'm enjoying my Saturday morning drinking coffee on the Decoded podcast with Chris Clough. Roland is finished speaking.
Yeah, so it's like we're looking at we're sort of framing this moment somehow like future AI will actually be a junior kindergartner, right?
Yep.
So the queuing and it's like the it's like this weird kind of anthropomorphism that sometimes we forget about, that humans actually aren't the center of the universe. So we assume that the way we see things, we hear things, we feel things, that's actually how stuff is. And then we kind of get the tech to understand, like, oh, look at dolphins can actually see 22 spectrums of light. Humans only get 2. This is what, an apple looks like to a dolphin eyeball. And everyone's amazed, like, oh my gosh, they've been living their own sort of like exponentially more genius experience in the world than we ever will, and we think we're apex thinkers, right? We're not that. We're not the apex thinkers that we think we are. And that's a very apex thinker thing to say, I guess. So I love how you're talking slowly with cue words to a future AI that is already knowing exactly the frequency of my voice versus your voice. It
Yes.
understands geometrically on the screen where you're generally positioned and I'm generally positioned. It can do spatial analysis of your room being lit versus my room being lit. It can do geolocation from our IPs and say, this one was in York region, this one was in Waterloo, like all this stuff that we assume we're the apex thinkers in this conversation, but the actual meta-analysis afterwards just makes us look like the junior kindergartners. So that was all Chris Clough talking right there. Yet another TED talk as he chuckles to himself, ironically, thinking that he's an apex thinker, having a sip of his last labeled Starbucks coffee mug. There, we're training the future AI.
So,
yeah,
I'm loving this because the other day,
it is this real. Sorry, this is so cheeky, but entirely true. I love that you brought this up as the topic. I'll shut up now. Take
I'm
it.
not just bringing it up as a topic. We're gonna do my ideas to have some experimentation because the other day I decided to start the process of grabbing all our episodes because right now I can't just give, for
Mhm.
example, Chat GPT's the flavor of the month here in my
Yeah.
house. I can't give Chat GPT the links to the videos and say deal with this. It doesn't do that for me. Now maybe it does that for Elon Musk or whoever's out there running this show, but I don't have that capacity or that power. So
Mhm.
I took the transcript of one of our episodes and I dropped it in and I started saying, "What can you do with this? Tell me, what can you do with this? I'm interested. I want to use this type of thing for the future. I want my children, I want Chris's children, I want anybody who's interested in Decode a Podcast to be able not only to watch and listen to the podcast, but to go into like a deeper search, a deeper realm."
Mm.
So I started playing with it, and then I thought, okay, this is cool. I want to grab all of the season one episodes and put it in a season one and just say, can you tell me in a paragraph what season one was about for us? Can you tell me some moments in season one where Roland decided to offer wisdom to his children of the future?
Mm.
Like,
This is awesome. Yeah.
right. So I was
Yeah.
I was awake until 1 a.m. trying to play with these ideas. The
This
future
is good.
the future Roland, this 5:30 a.m. Roland was not impressed or happy.
Mhm.
But the 12:30 a.m. Roland was giggling in delight at the power.
Cracking the fingers like you're opening up the universe for you to take a peek at. That's
So let me
awesome.
tell you how far I got. I grabbed the first 8 episodes of our podcast. I took the transcripts and I put them into a Google document. Turns out that's 167 pages worth of data. I put it into ChatGPT and said, "This is too much. I can't do this. It's too much." So right away, I'm like, "This isn't good," because you
Sorry, you put 8, so that was 8 episodes that you force fed
I tried
the
to force feed it 8 episodes just
all of the text of the
of the
transcript.
transcript, and
Gotcha.
it said no, can't do it, which is upsetting because I think we have over 40 episodes in our first season. So,
Yeah,
um, so anyway,
the labor. This is
yeah, yeah, it took me a long time to do that, and then it says I can't do anything with this, and I'm not going to put them in one at a time. So I don't know what I'm going to do, but
mhm,
my mind is kind of my mind is open to this. So what I want to do today
mhm,
for fun as we talk, and Rochelle's here. I'm gonna say good morning to her in a second.
mhm.
I want you to pick an episode over the last
Oh, shit.
um, 7.5 seasons, and I'm just gonna grab the transcript. I'm
You
gonna
know
throw
what?
it in.
I can tell you right now the one.
Which
The
one,
one the one about the cigarettes, the smoking.
bro? I can't find. I, I can't find that on my own
Oh.
like that. I get
You
what you're
do you
saying.
still have my pictures?
Yeah, they're in the
You s
basement.
So I think you have the drawing.
I
So
definitely have the drawings, but
but that's the shorter walk.
I
Just
know, but
'cause I wouldn't be able to go back, like, I don't know the numbers that because like, at some point, like, in the beginning, we were kind of like assessment evaluation, and then there was, like, the actual thing that I was drawing was assessment and evaluation-y, and then somewhere around season 2, 3, we started kind of freestyling, and I was freestyling my drawing, and you're like, "What the F is that?" I'm like, "I don't know, it's a tree with a rabbit with a Batman costume on." And you're like, "Oh, cool, cool, cool. Why'd you do that?" I don't know, but there was something that we said. And then I started to get into like abstract art altogether, had nothing to do with what we're talking about whatsoever. And then, I played a little bit with digital. So to ask me, I would only ever be able to do it by the pictures or the
okay.
one with the armor. Maybe the one with the armor, the broken armor down, because I know that was the one where we talked about vulnerability and dropping the armor, based on Brene Brown. Maybe that would be a good one to do. I liked both
So
of those episodes. Sorry, go ahead.
as we talk, well, okay. So I'm flipping through our library here, and maybe something will pop up. But I
Oh, I
named
might be able to do it because I uploaded a bunch of them into Flickr. So let me check Flickr because I started to use Flickr to hang maybe the first 2 or 3 seasons of images. So I can probably go and take a peek at that really fast and find it. So if that'll be helpful.
okay. So as you decide to do that or whatnot, I'm gonna. So, good morning, Rochelle. Thanks for
Good
joining
morning,
us today.
Michelle. Morning, bon matin.
Bon matin. Oui. How do you say night? Good weekend. Happy weekend.
You say, yeah, I've heard bon weekend.
Oh,
Uh,
I know that there's a word for weekend in French. I can't remember it. Anyway, and good morning,
fin,
Gary.
fin de la semaine, the end of the week. I don't know.
Fin de semaine. I don't
Yeah,
know. She'll
fin de
tell
semaine.
us eventually.
Yeah, sure.
Gary's ears must have been burning yesterday because I was in my office space with the other person who it's his office space, but he's been nice enough to let me jump in. Um, we were talking about the retirement of an educator who Gary knows, and it's Bon Weekend or Bon Fin de Semaine.
That's what I
So
said.
I know
Almost.
that's what
Almost,
she
yeah,
said,
yeah.
but I'm
But you
like
know
the
what? I will,
The white guy from Newmarket speaking Franglais. I just figured, why would they say Bon Weekend? But anyway,
bon weekend, yeah. Shorten
wow,
it up.
I really tore you up there. The white guy
I,
from
I was gonna say,
Newmarket.
yeah. Well, you know what? I like all the privilege. You just privilege doxed me in front of everybody. If they
Shoot,
haven't
I
seen the
did. Eh?
video, right? Yeah, you totally. No. But the only way you could have done it better was to say that I'm 54 years old.
Well,
54-year-old white guy from Newmarket. That's I need that T-shirt. Just see what people, what people make of it. 54-year-old white guy, Newmarket.
I love it. And then the picture of your house because that
That's
adds to the
different,
flavor,
but from
right?
Google, right? I'll take the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Google. Yeah, the
So his ears must have been burning. Gary, your ears must have been burning because me and the student success teacher were chatting, and he's like, "I saw Gary at the retirement." He says, "It's funny because he's like, he told me to say hello, which is awesome because I talk to Gary 24/7. So it's always funny when somebody. It's like if I run into somebody that knows you, Chris, and like, hey, I just talked to Chris the other day on socials. He said, tell Roland I say hi. It would bring a laugh to my face because I talk to you. Like there are certain people I talk to often, and so it was funny when the student success teacher is like, "Hey, Gary Kraling says hi." I'm like, "That's awesome. Nice to hear from Gary," even though I talk to Gary quite often.
Can I ask you a behavioral question?
Yes,
When someone says to you, say hi to so and so for me, do you do it?
I do because I'm autistic, and now I'm making. I'm sorry. Let me let me backtrack a little bit. My
And the AI just went like, oh. So future chitty-acts are like, at what point? So future chitty-acts are saying, at what point in my family tree did autism enter into the self-diagnosis frame? So just for the AI, both Chids and I have had, let's just do it this way.
this
So
is
both,
Chris talking. Chris
this
is
is Chris
speaking.
talk. Chris is talking right now. Clough's talking. Old white guy from Newmarket, 54 years old, is now talking. Chids and I have had, I think, some online, probably some on pod, and also off pod conversations around where both of us have been identified by others as having certain personality traits. Now, in a cheeky way, because both of us have been involved in education, of course, we're self-identifying as how some of these actual attributes are in alignment with different identities that we've worked with. And we both have said on different occasions that we do align with some autistic behaviors, some ADHD behaviors. There's a lot of stuff. We embrace it. We embrace it. There's no diagnostical pathway to this apart from the problem of learning too much, because we have all this information in our heads and saying that it's more of an affinity than an actual identity or a diagnosis. The one thing I will say is that even though we had a little bit giggle at that, and I will say the apology on the front end for having the giggle, not at the expense of anyone that is in that diagnosis, but it's the giggle at that. I actually really love those traits about us. Like I think when you and I started to talk about it, it's like you're my person. I'm like, I have some of these things too in the way that I work through the world. And I would say that like others that I've noticed that are neurodivergent and are born that way and are rocking the world that way, I have been sort of like kind of like backslapped for having some of these kind of attitudes or the way that I see the world. Like somehow I am less than because I see the world this way. So whether or not there's any diagnosis, and I'm not rushing to get diagnosed at this point, I'm kind of just throwing up a high five, say, I appreciate you. Anyone else that has concrete thinking, appreciate sort of checklists. When something says it's going to be done a certain way, I get stressed when it doesn't get done that way. Do I have trouble with transitions? Sometimes, yes. I like to be prepped. I like to be primed. And sometimes I get a little edgy when other people don't operate within my controlled sphere. I could call myself type A, but maybe the type A is just a lowercase. Maybe I do have some autistic traits. I mean, maybe that's it. So there's the, you know, future anyone checking this out. I also just want to say, because I don't know how, I don't know if Rochelle, Gary might, but sort of checking the game tapes, and Shiz and I have had lots of conversations about what this pod is. What is this pod? Like on one level, I think the fact that we've made it to, almost 10 years of discussions isn't just because we have a deep appreciation of the work that we do. It isn't just because we are friends. We actually became better friends because of our connection through the pod, right? I think what aligned us was, and it was suddenly, and what I would love to know from the AI is, at what point did Chids and Clough start to look at the pod as an artifact of our own existence, such that future generations of our family could actually sit and enjoy learning about us. And I think that's why the episode that I asked you to look for, which was the smoking, our memories of dad episode, and our similar synchronicity there of each of our dads as smokers, and not in any negative way, but as a tactile, sensory, physical attribute of something that they were interested in and defined their character, kind of an episode. Geez, that statement wasn't complex at all, right? Try saying that one again. But we started to talk about the fact that, no one in our family has watched even probably or listened to one full episode to this point. Like, I don't even have really, Karen just, all Karen will say when I come upstairs, she's like, good pod. I'm like, really good pod. She's like, oh yeah, what'd you talk about? I'll give a couple sort of bits. She's like, cool. She just appreciates the fact, I think, that her husband, someone that's important to her, is doing something that he enjoys. Like, it's just like, it's hobby. He's happy. It satisfies. It fills his bucket, whatever. But the next level thing that happened with this pod, and probably this is the carrier wave that has made the staying power for it, is now we're chasing this kind of strange digital dream about providing documentation of us being here for our families in the future. And we can't deny that right now, Chids has said the words on the on-ramp, we're training the AI. So whatever the version of us that maybe our kids' kids will have access to, holy shit. Like, I will never know as much about my grandfather as my kids and my kids' kids, if they go that far, will be able to know about me, just because of what we've done on the pod. And I think that was a bit of a mind blower for you and I. You talking about wishing, I think I started talking about that episode about how I keep getting prompts from my dad's Facebook. And I said, I kind of went down man, this is kind of stunning. My dad's been now, dead for 2 years or whatever, and I'm getting friend requests. I'm getting pinged by his account. And then you kind of came from the point of view, I think, talking about the watches and sort of saying, man, I wish I had more digital interactivity with that. And this was not long before, probably about 4 or 5 years somewhere, because I think this episode was somewhere in the midsection, before either one of you or I had any access to ChatGPT. So that was really long-winded, Rochelle and Gary, but that's I think that's I love that you could sort of bear witness to that genesis point, because that's what changed this pod from, well, maybe people will show up, but it doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't matter anymore. It's cool. We appreciate you too. Love that we've had conversation. Love that I've got to have offline conversations, got to meet. Like that is a cool thing of just I think that's a cool extra to kind of doing cool things. Somebody notices and they want to stay around it. But I would wholeheartedly say that everyone should be doing something like this. Everyone should be their own historian and sort of be providing some sort of point of access to a future person that wants to know more about you and doesn't want to have to just go through the local newspapers or just talk to family members. Do your own documentation, be your own documentarian. And I think when you and I accepted this, it brought it from like podcast edu podcast to something really special.
Roland is speaking now, and you dropped so much there that we would need a couple of episodes for me to get into some of the things. So I'm going to see what I can do here about being relatively succinct in responding to what you said. So the first thing is around the autism thing. Yeah, I'm not intending to make fun of people or whatnot. But like you said it so well that people in our lives have attributed certain some of our behaviors have been attached to different I don't even want to call it it's not a disorder, but
It's just neurodivergent. It's
yeah,
it's
okay.
it's yeah, it's off baseline, right? And when it's said to me, it's not complimentary.
Same here.
I say it to you, bro, it's complimentary because I see these elements. I've always thought of like multiple intelligences, ADHD, autism. I see them as freaking superpowers, man, because they just burst with an energy that creates some really cool ways to see the world. Again, freaking dolphin looking at an apple and being able to see it in a multi-spectrum bit of light that the human eye just can't see. I really do think of these identities as superpowers. They access an understanding of the world that neurotypical individuals don't have access to. Flat out.
So Roland speaking again, when I was in grade 13, had a psych ed done on me, and I found out that I had a learning disability connected to mathematics. So at the time they called it dyscalculia. I don't know if they still call it
Yep,
that.
still do. It's still a
Okay,
thing.
fair enough. Anyway, I have that diagnosis from a clinical psychologist. And I laugh when over here people may refer to me as neurodivergent. My response is I had a psych ed done, and there was the only thing that popped up that was of statistical significance was my learning disability in mathematics. So I just want to put that out there for the AI and for anybody who's listening to this. Now, I don't even know where to go. So this is where I'm going to go. I'm going to go.
Mhm.
I think it's friggin' hilarious that this episode, season 8, episode 23, number 330 of the Decoded podcast, where Rochelle and Gary are with us. But I think it's so cool that along the way, Carlos has been with us, Ramona's been with us, Stephen Hurley, like these names that we've dropped. I just friggin' love that I could put into an AI. Who are some of the people that Chris and Roland have connected with during their episodes over these years? And then it just spits out Gary, Rochelle, Carlos, Ramona, and it takes you to a whole other place, right? It I've noticed that in some of the episodes at the bottom when I go to get the transcript, um, it says notable mentions in the episode, and then it's got a picture of the individual. So Gary Vaynerchuk, Tim Ferriss, their little picture headshot pops up there, just saying that in this episode these people were referred to. And I'm like, that's friggin' insane. So YouTube obviously has something going on where those,
Keyword search, just a keyword. That's all it is.
but
Based on their clout, right? So they're
yes,
it's not popping up.
no,
It's not like popping up of any random person that we
no,
talk about. It's
right.
somebody that has some sort of digital clout.
So the reference to autism, and yes, if someone says to me at work, if someone says, "Hey, do you know?" We're talking. Hey, do you know Gary K? Yeah, I know Gary. He's a friend of mine. Tell him I said hello, and I have a good connection, and things are good. Like, I'm like, I like this person. I definitely like Gary. Then I'll grab my phone and I'll be like, yo, Gary, so and so says hi, which is even more funny because they could probably email him or text him, but whatever. I will do that. And that is I like rules, bro. I like rules. And you should see my face when I repeat a rule to somebody. They're like, yeah, but that only happens some of the time. I'm like, why are you doing this to me? Why is it a rule some of the time and it's not a rule some of the other times? And I was talking to my wife about this the other day, about my job and the things I've learned about how to operate in my job. So when something pops up in my day, I'm like, oh, shoot, I can't do this today. And people are like, why can't you do this today? I'm like, this is a multi step process issue that I have to deal with now. Well, why? Well, because one day when I was with this person who has more authority than me and understanding said that if I run into this type of situation, these are the things I must do to move through the situation. People are looking at me like I'm nuts. And I'm like, no, I'm not nuts. I know more. I know better. I have to do better. Even my wife is like, why do you have to do all that with an IEP? It's simple. Da, da, da. I'm like, no, that's not what I was instructed by the person in the position of authority that is responsible for me. They told me that when X, Y, and Z happens, this is how I should respond. This is the process I should follow. My wife is like, that's stupid. I'm like, well, it could be stupid, but it's also my job. So I must do it. Um, so I operate, I like, it's funny. I'm going to regret saying this here, but I'm going to say it. I like knowing the rules, but then I like to know how to break them when I want
Mhm.
them broken. I know that doesn't sound weird, but it's a bit of Roland that I don't walk around telling people.
Well,
So
you're creating a subset of rules.
I am, but
You're doing if then. So if we do it, what you're doing if then, I think you're also I think you're also in a really explicit fashion just being human. Because the thing that people are commenting on by you wanting to maintain an adherence to the rule is suggesting somehow like the gray zone is easy. And I would push back and say there's nothing easy about the gray zone. There's a lot of risk in the gray zone. So, in order to mitigate risk, I am going to go through a process of give me the rule, and then I'm going to work on a subset. And it can be, it can go infinite, right? I'm going to do a subset that reduces the risk and makes it seem more logical about how to break the rule. My brain does the exact same thing. And I've said to other people, it's funny, I've never said break the rule. What I usually say is I want to know how close I can get to the fence line. So to get beyond the warning radar, it goes back to Goggins, this idea of whatever percentage you think is your end, you still have something left in the tank. So whatever the warning signal that your system puts up that you're about to break a rule, I want to know what that extra 30% is before I actually break the rule. And I've come to learn that there's actually a space there that we go through our educational world, just as a very clear example, responding to warning bells, but not the actual issue or not the actual event that we're being warned about. And for some people, that's cool. But I also find like there's also a lot of waste in whatever that percentage is. And I would challenge any educator that operates that way. It tends to be in spec ed spaces. You could do it in a neurotypical classroom as well. Analyze what your early warning systems are and figure out if they're actually too early, too big of a warning, or completely off track at this point. You just do it because someone told you it should be done that way. And I find by creating that subset of rules, I actually have different warning systems for different things, but it's based more on what my capacity is for dealing with that event that I've learned about, as opposed to taking somebody else's word for it. I'll give a very specific example. I know what it feels like to be punched in the neck in an educational setting. I know what it's like to have my beard grabbed and have my head pulled forward in an educational setting. I know what it feels like to have my arm grabbed by two hands and held very, very tightly to the point that I'm thinking to myself, this could break my arm. Now, all of those things are talked about within our nonviolent critical responses, CPI, we call it on our board. We do a lot of training. We do a lot of training that helps us to understand if that event is about to happen, but also to do while you're in the event, right? So you get both. My warning system was fundamentally changed the moment I took a punch, because that particular punch in the neck and the side of my face actually didn't hurt as much as I thought it might. So now I have a new subset of rules, and I have a new subset of watching for how a punch like that could happen. And I think there's a very strange logic to this to me, that experiential learning must create these subsets of rules. To other people, though, it could look like you're breaking rules, but you just might be breaking their rules or not agreeing with their rules. But I always wanted, that's the reason I asked the why, not to give me a way out, but to understand whether or not the person that's giving me this warning, this information, to see, I want to be able to put a pin in where they're at, because I know I won't stay there. It's so unlikely that I'm ever going to be in the exact same position. But that is a position on my game board. So I kind of like to hear where they're at in that space. So what you're saying entirely makes sense to me. Entirely.
So, as per usual, I appreciate your perspective on this, and the way you logically explain that works well for me. I recently had a situation, and this is I'm glad I'm talking about this here because Gary might be my boss next year. So, this could be good or bad, but I think Gary will like this. And this is funny. I'm not giving AI any understanding of why Gary could be my boss next year, but I'm not, and I don't want to. Um, I was uh, a parent got very upset recently with the way her child was not being treated by a teacher with respect to the child's IEP.
So an accommodation challenge.
Accommodations. The
Gotcha.
parent basically said to the teacher, "What about all my son's accommodations? Like
Yep. Yep.
you're playing hardball, but my son's got accommodations, and I've been polite up to this point, but I've not seen you implement any of them." So, and of course I'm dragged into it because I'm the manager of the IEP and the go-between, I guess. So anyway, and I've had great conversations with this mother. I've been talking to her since the beginning of the year. I feel like her and I have a good working relationship. So we're going back and forth. She's saying, "Roland, can you please confirm that these accommodations are on the IEP?" I'm like, "Yes, they are. Of course they are." And then, anyway, we're going back and forth. So then the mom ends with, "This is what I want in the IEP from now on. It belongs there. This is what my child, this is what he needs. And it's clear to everybody this is what he needs." So I'm like, okay, it's not that easy. For me as a newbie, it's not that easy. I need to do certain things and I need to find evidence that this is something your child needs. And I'm being totally blunt with the mother. Like that, I stopped emailing and I picked up the phone. And I friggin' hate the phone. But I'm like, this is, even I recognize, no, this is a conversation. She needs to hear my tone. She needs to hear, she needs to hear the care in my voice. Right? Like this is what I'm thinking. She needs that from me. And I need to hear, how mad is she? Is she going to be swearing at me on the phone, yelling at me, or is this going to be a cordial conversation? So I needed that, which is awesome because I feel like that's a piece of wisdom I've not really had in my life. But I was like, stop the emails and pick up the phone. So I called her. I'm like, "Listen, I totally understand where you're coming from. I want to support. I want you to feel good about your son being at school, and I want to make sure that he has what he needs to help teachers accommodate him and move forward. But none of this happens without me understanding, as the person responsible for the IEP, what I can do and what I can't do and how I can make things happen." I talked to an experienced teacher at the school that's been an IEP monitor, and I tell him, "This is my situation. What do I do? How do I do this?" And he's like, "Go to the OSR and go through that OSR one piece of paper at a time to see if you can find anything that will connect to what she wants. And none of this is being done in a, he's just saying, look, Roland, like, you're an honest guy, you're a hard worker, you want what's best, but you can't make things up. So I would suggest you go right to the document, right to the source, and you go through everything so that you can say after, no, I went through everything. This can't happen. Unless we move forward in a different direction, the past cannot help us here. I'm like, okay. So I dedicate time. This is hilarious too, because I love the OSR room. I've spent so much time in there. I'm in there. One of the admin assistants from the office walks in. She goes, "What are you doing here?" I'm like, "I'm always in here." She's like, "Okay, I won't get in your way." I'm like, "No, you tell me I won't get in your way. This is like your bread and butter. I'm just visiting." I go through this OSR one piece of paper at a time. I find a document from years ago that says something in it that I can connect to a new accommodation and a new need in the IEP. So I do it and I'm all proud of myself and I go and tell the teacher who helped me, "Oh my God, look, look." And I show him the IEP. He's like, "Oh, you added something." I'm like, "Yeah." And not only did I added the proof that proves that there's a need, that proves we need an accommodation to meet the need that's connected to the proof. To me, I'm like in seventh heaven because I think I'm like, this is awesome when it works like this. Call the mom. I tell the mom, guess what? I was able to make it work. And then she says, how? So I tell her. She goes, there was a document in my son's OSR from that year and it says this, this. I'm like, yeah. She's like, how do you know that? I said, because I went through one piece of paper at a time, the entire OSR, and it's a thick OSR. And she's like, oh, that's great. Thank you for doing that. I'm like, it's not a problem. If you, this is good that there was something in there. Now I went looking for the needle in the haystack. Most of the time, I'm not looking for that. I've been trained to look for the big things that are in your face. The needle in the haystack, well, if we need it, I'll go looking for it. But if we don't, I'm not gonna. I just don't have the time. Long story short, let me be frank. Um, I
Roland
make
Chidiak said, "Let me be frank, but AI, his name is not actually Frank."
Thank you, Christopher Clough, for saying that. Um, all that to say, I know what the rule is. And somebody said to me, why did you do all that? Why didn't you just put it in there? It makes perfect sense. And I'm like, because one day somebody may audit that IEP. And I know I've made mistakes from September to now. But this was a situation of I know better, I have to do better. So if that IEP would ever come up, I'd be like, no, I remember that. I followed I followed the rules in order to try to help things work out. Whereas in other times, if you drop, there are some that haunt me. A name came up the other day and I just put my head down and they were like, what's wrong? I'm like, I dropped the ball on that one. And then they're like, well, you don't do that. I'm like, no, I was in I was in robot mode and I thought I knew what I was doing because of how I was trained, but really I found out after I shouldn't have done that because there's rule 328 that I didn't know about that then I learned about after I had done those things. And then they just stare at you like you're crazy. And I'm like, I'm not crazy. I know that name will haunt me forever because I shouldn't have done certain things that I did because I only had rules 100 to 250. I didn't know about 328. I didn't even know there was a 328. So, know better, do better. Um, so Rochelle said like 8 hours ago that she said, I do that too. And then I said, the weekend thing or the autistic thing? Like the Bond weekend or the autistic thing? She said the self diagnosis
Mm.
thing. So,
Mhm.
many of us do that. So, all that to say, it came up. Um, Sometimes my family uses certain terms in a way that I take as offensive. They may not be trying to offend, but I feel like they are. I want to shift gears to, oh shoot, I lost it. It was there, it's gone. So what I want to do now.
Mhm.
Oh, Oh, I want to say this. So at the dinner table the other day, for some reason your name came up,
Oh,
and yeah, and and I mentioned that you were a chef, and then my kids they're like, "Whoa, whoa, dad, stop." I'm like, "What?" They're like, "Clough was a chef?" I'm like, I've never expressed this to all of you because
backstory, eh?
I was talking about I was talking about something about you, and then my oldest is like, "Whoa, whoa, Chris is a teacher, and he used to be a chef." I've known
Okay.
you for what, 12 years, and
Yeah, yeah.
so then I'm like, "Well, let me tell you about Chris." And then it was awesome. My oldest sat down, like he sat in his stool at the island. He's like, and he looks at his younger brother. He goes, "We're going to hear the Chris Clough origin story." And I was
So
like, I butchered it because I
for
I
for
realized I didn't really know it.
for Gary and Rochelle, I've met Roland's spouse. I've never met his kids. I don't. I think I had a video interaction one time, maybe a partial phone call there in the background. One of them posted a question to me about something from some polo conversation, but I've never met his kids. So it's funny, you know, you make it 12, 13 years into a friendship and there's still really interesting gaps to be explored, right? So the whole fam and my whole family, like they know about our friendship and they know that we hang out, you know, a few times a year, but that we stay in digital contact frequently. Um, and so I'm not surprised that there's gaps in their understanding too. Like, so that's kind of cool that you can sort of pique their interest with a story.
I looked
And
you up
yes, and yes, part of my origin story is that I worked in hospitality. That was my first career right up until like 2004, something like that.
yeah. Anyway, it was just funny the way it's like we're gonna
Mhm.
hear the Chris Clough the story, right?
Hold up,
Dude,
hold up, hold up, hold up.
it's 8:42.
Oh, what? Really?
You gotta go. I
I
think.
do. I
Yeah.
do.
We didn't get to the AI. We'll have to do it next week.
I
But
think
maybe
we
by
framed
then
it. Framed it out.
we framed it. But what I want to do is I want to grab an episode and I want us to play. I want us to use the power of the AI to answer some
Mm.
questions for us
Oh,
about
I
that
got you.
episode. That's what I
Okay.
want to do. But it'll be
Oh,
easy
in real
now.
time? What, in real
Yeah, in real
time?
time.
Oh,
Like,
you want to okay, okay. So let's commit to that for next week then. So
okay.
being able to actually you're gonna have it up on screen, you're gonna ask a question about something.
Like it's already I've got another window open. I want to
I
take the
got you.
transcript. I want to put it in there and I want to start I want to play with it a little bit. I want to see what kind of power and if Rochelle and Gary are here, whoever's listening and interacting, they want to
Mhm.
jump in. They got questions, funny questions, serious questions. Let's just use the power of the AI and see what happens.
I would love, you know, thinking about this, I would love to have a summary of all the products you and I have talked about. When
Oh, that'd be cool.
we were heavy-handed in like seasons probably 3, 4, 5, or 4, 5, 6, coming up with like another branded item through decoded industries or whatever we called it, right? All those products we kept on saying, from food products to men's health to leadership books to barbecue, barbecue sauce, kombucha, right? Lots of different
Yes.
stuff we did. Yep.
And the people involved. Like remember
All of
Aiden
it. Yeah. Our marketing
was
team
our
and
kombucha
our,
master?
our creators and merchandisers. I
And
love it.
before we sign off,
Mhm.
Ramona was or is our fan president, I believe, fan
Yes.
club president.
In
Uh,
absentia or whatever they call it. Yeah.
okay. Thanks, Gary and Rochelle. It was great to have you with us today. Sorry for the I'm not apologizing. It was a great episode and
We do what we do.
we do what
We
we
do what
do.
we do. And but we are appreciative and thankful for anyone that sort of stops by and hangs out in our living room here. So that's
Fair
cool.
enough. Okay, this was season 8, episode 23, number 330 of the Decoder podcast. Peace, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Peace, dude. I'll connect with you later.